Fred here, welcome back to the Gear Obsession channel. In this episode, I want to talk about the presidential debate number 2. I usually don't get political at all, but I'm not going to talk about everything in that debate. My political opinions, I almost always keep to myself. But out of nowhere, after, I don't know, a whole year of debates and everything, they actually asked a gun question, and it blew me away. So I gotta talk about this. I feel personally that it's that important. So Candy Crowley, I hope I'm saying her name right, had introduced Nina Gonzalez to everybody during the debate. I think it was like 2/3 through. And the question was asked to first President Obama that during the Democratic National Convention in 2008, you stated you wanted to keep AK-47s out of the hands of criminals. What has your administration done or planned to do to limit the availability of assault weapons? The question is already loaded because it's being referred to as an assault weapon. And anybody, preaching to the choir here, anyone who's really into guns knows that assault weapon is a term made up by the left-wing media to basically alienate or make a certain class of guns look mean. And essentially, assault weapons are referred to semi-automatic guns that look like automatic guns that our military uses, but they're just semi-automatic guns with some evil-looking things on it, but don't actually change the function or power or anything else about those guns. So it's just a way of categorizing those guns, and then hopefully through regulation and laws and things like that, try to ban them. So it's just a cubby hole to stick the guns they want to get rid of in. So President Obama answers that question. We're a nation that believes in the Second Amendment. And I believe in the Second Amendment. We got a long tradition of hunting and sportsmen and people who want to make sure they can protect themselves. I find this kind of funny. And then the next word out of his mouth is but. And that is a code word. It's a anti-gun speak code word that you should just get alerted, because here it comes. Because it's sort of like that appeasing statement, and then I'm going to tell you what I really feel like. I sort of got to say this, but here's what I believe is coming next. So, there are other code words, anti-gun code words, such as reasonable regulations and common sense gun laws. And it always goes down the same road, through the fence and down the field. You're just unleashed. So really, President Obama has never changed his views, and he's never really hid them too much about how he feels about guns. I mean, even his 2008, I have something written down here that basically says he had specifically said, I am not in favor of concealed weapons. I think that it creates a potential atmosphere where more innocent people could get shot during altercations. And that was to the Pittsburgh Tribune, 2008. He doesn't trust you with guns, even though you get background checked, ID'd, and what do they call it, NICS checked and all that. It's not good enough. And me personally, everyone I know who owns a gun is someone who it really is responsible enough to own a gun, at least the legal folks. Now, people who do it illegally, they don't need the paperwork. There's no laws or regulations going to stop them from getting a gun out of some crook's trunk of a car. All right. Additionally, he has surrounded himself with like-minded folks. Right there after the election, he surrounded himself with the Clintons, Joe Biden, Eric Holder, just to name a few of the obvious. So anyway, getting back to the but, because I digressed there and went off to a tangent. He goes into a but. There are too many instances during the course of my presidency where I've had to comfort families, and here we go, women, children. He had to comfort them because they got shot. Um, more people get run over by cars. As a matter of fact, more people get assaulted with bats than guns. But he never met a gun he didn't like. My next... I'm really doing this right off the cuff. I printed the transcript out. I highlighted a couple of things, and I'm... it's... whatever. Now, he did state stuff about mentally ill. You know, we had that one mentally ill guy in Aurora. I'm sure that these people could be checked. Actually, it's a breakdown of society. And actually, that is brought up later on as far as family and society. You know, if you know a friend who's mentally ill and you know he got a gun, you know, hey, you need to stand up and do what you need to do. Because there's no amount of paperwork, regulation, or whatever that's going to keep somebody who wants a gun from getting a gun. And if he doesn't get a gun, he'll use something else. So, you know, it's time for people to start policing themselves. It's the only way to look out for each other. But I have here, but I also share the belief that weapons, this is also something that he had said, but he also shares the belief that weapons that were designed for soldiers in the war theaters do not belong in our streets. President Obama said, let me say that again, but I also share your belief, because he's talking to Candy, or he's talking to Ms. Gonzalez, but I also share your belief that weapons that were designed for soldiers in war theaters don't belong in our streets. That's pretty wild. I'm sitting there and I just yelled, "What? What did he just say?" Because all guns, every single gun over the last 500 years, yes, guns have been around for 500 years, ever made, have been based on the design based on designs for soldiers on the battlefield. That's right, flintlocks, single shots, revolvers, bolt action, lever action, semi-autos, autos. Every single gun that's out there, a third of Americans own, are based on designs for war. So he's saying he doesn't believe that any gun should be on the streets. No one should own a gun. Right there, that statement. Anyway, then he goes on to say, and so what I'm trying to do is to get a broader conversation about how we can reduce violence generally. Part of it is saying that if we can get an assault weapons ban introduced, don't be surprised. He's always said that. That's not a surprise at all. But part of that is also looking for other sources of violence. Because frankly, in my home of Chicago, you know, Chicago, some of the city with the most stringent gun control, you can't own a gun there. There's an awful lot of violence. That doesn't make sense, but whatever. And they're not using AK-47s. They're using cheap handguns. So I guess he wants to ban handguns too. You see, it doesn't end with AK-47s or M16s, AR-15s. It doesn't end with the assault weapons. It doesn't end with your sports rifles, you know, your bolt actions there. It doesn't end with your handguns. It ends when there's no more left. I mean, when the assault weapons ban was in effect, the Joyce Foundation, the Brady campaign, didn't stop. They continued to push on because, you know, it's just one step toward more reasonable gun control, and they will never stop until all guns are gone. And when all guns, not actually gone, but when all guns are banned, then they might go after knives. Take a look overseas, over the pond in Britain, and when knives are gone, you know, you could hurt yourself with that fork. You know what? You could choke on that marshmallow. Where would it end? Anyway, also, President Obama had said that he believes that the D.C. handgun law was constitutional when it was being fought out in the Supreme Court. And he also wasn't for John Roberts or Samuel Alito, who were the people who really helped drive through the Heller case to, get that D.C. Heller case where they finally recognized, sorry about that, the Second Amendment is for personal ownership, not for just militia. Anyway, so who said the president doesn't have a plan for his second term? Because I kept on hearing that throughout the whole thing, the whole debate. He doesn't have a plan. He has a plan for the second term. That plan is to prosecute a full-scale, sustained, all-out campaign to excise the Second Amendment through legislation, litigation, regulation, executive orders, judicial fiat, international treaties, in short, every available lever, even covert, undercover, Fast and Furious, which we'll get to in a minute. Everything he can. And it's no secret, again, right after President Obama was elected in 2008, his transition team had posted on a website, and this was in the gun news and the gun forums, but probably wasn't on mainstream media. But there was that change.gov website where he listed some of the anti-gun objectives, and when they were pointed out, then they ripped them down. And those objectives were permanently reimposing the Clinton gun bans, opening up sensitive BATF gun trace data for politicians to look into, and imposing restrictions that would severely restrict your gun laws. And then, of course, again, I have here pushing gun control under the radar, basically any means necessary. And again, it's Fast and Furious, which again, we're going to get to. So anyway, Miss Crowley sort of turned around to Governor Romney and asked the same question to him about assault weapons and AK-47s. And Romney had come back and said, I'm not in favor of new pieces of legislation on guns and taking away guns from... I'm sorry. I'm very bad at reading on camera. He said, I'm not in favor of new pieces of legislation on guns and taking guns away or making certain guns illegal. We, of course, don't want to have automatic weapons, and that's already illegal in this country to have automatic weapons. And again, I stood up and said, what? What the? This person doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Politicians usually don't know what they're talking about when it comes to the intricacies of guns. Just in case y'all didn't know, even though I'm probably preaching to the choir, automatic guns are legal. They are highly regulated, yeah. They are heavily taxed, yeah, and they're very cost prohibitive. To get any kind of automatic gun, you're probably going to be spending at least $10,000 when it's all done. $10,000 is enough for any automatic gun. So, anyway, Governor Romney then goes on to talk about family and the importance of family to sort of reduce violence. It's, not the gun. It's the person behind the gun, and it's your responsibility, your family, your neighborhood, your church, or whatever, to, deal with the person, not the tool, is really what he's saying here. And then he sort of brought up out of nowhere, and it threw me. He said he brought up Fast and Furious and the Obama administration and everything that's going on with that. The Fast and Furious deal, in my personal opinion, the only plausible explanation that I have for Fast and Furious is that they wanted to somehow prove the administrator the false premise that more than 90% of the guns recovered in Mexico come from the United States, because they were saying that before Fast and Furious. They're saying all these guns are going over the border to Mexico. They're coming from the U.S., so we got to have better gun laws in place and restrictions because they're being used by the drug cartels. Well, that 90% wasn't actually correct, so they had to somehow make it 90%. Because what it turned out is the number 90% really was that most of the guns that they were finding on the border before Fast and Furious were not traceable. And there was like a very small percentage that were traceable. And out of the ones that were traceable that had serial numbers, there was like 9% that were actually coming from the U.S. That were somehow gotten there illegally. So they had to figure out a way to make more guns appear. And, to me, that's the only plausible reason for Fast and Furious, to be honest. So then they went on to bring up Governor Romney's record in Massachusetts, where he basically enacted some serious gun control. And Governor Romney at the time said that it was sort of to bring everybody together. In his very words, he said, well, Candy, actually, in my state, the pro-gun folks and the anti-gun folks came together and put together a piece of legislation. And it's referred to as an assault weapons ban, but it had, at signing of the bill, both the pro-gun and anti-gun people came together because it provided opportunities both wanted. Really? What goes through my mind with that statement is, what the the you-know-what? An amendment to the Constitution is not up for negotiation, and it was obviously compromised so anti-gun folks can be appeased. He brought together folks and passed legislation against the amendment of the Constitution. I'm floored. I don't know if I could ever forgive a man, or if a woman did it, a woman, who does this. What if that was your First Amendment right to speak? What I'm doing right now with you. What if, all the people don't like the certain anti-Fred people don't like what I'm talking about, so the mayor of my town gets together and decides that I only can say these certain things to appease them and let me do sort of what I want to do too. So I can't talk anything about President Obama. I can just say what I can about Romney. See? It doesn't, this is wrong. So, really, what we're looking at is the lesser of two evils. I don't know what to say. As far as records are concerned, there's worse and worser. So, what comes to mind, though, is the cost and consequences of President Obama's reelection. What would happen, even if he, which he probably could never get Congress to enact another gun ban. He does have some other levers that he can really enact to get things going. And the most important is our Supreme Court. At a minimum, 2 justices are going to need to get replaced. They're getting very old. And they'll replace them with with judges that are anti-gun. That's just going to be the fact of so far the judges that he put in there are anti-gun. It's not going to be any surprise. It shouldn't be any surprise to you that when it comes time for them to put some more judges there, they're going to be anti-gun. They also Hillary Clinton, one of the arms of the Obama administration, there at the U.S. State Department of State, started participating in the conferences that were talking about small arms, global gun ban treaties in the UN. Luckily, that was sort of headed off for now, but how long is unknown. And if he get a second term, he doesn't need to worry about getting reelected, so it'll just be unhinged. And are there already more undercover missions, such as Fast and Furious, already in the works? It wouldn't surprise me. So, I don't know. What it comes down to me is, if the lesser of two evils is Governor Romney if you're a single item voter. I forgot the term. So if you own a gun, the choice to me is pretty clear. President Obama, I respect him in that he has always made it clear how he stands. He is for a assault weapons ban, and once he obtains that, he will go for everything else. He has never changed message on it at all. I want to see what I'm doing for time. He will never change at all. Governor Romney, on the other hand, has been sort of wishy-washy, 50-50 on it. He said he changed. He said what he did in Massachusetts was what the people that he represented wanted. And it is a very democratic state. What scares me is that he's going to, if he becomes president, will he try to appease the other side and compromise the Constitution? And in this case, what we're talking about here, the Second Amendment, it worries me. It worries me a lot. But it's better than the very clear, we're going to ban your guns. And, with President Obama not having to worry about getting reelected after, the second term, he's not going to care. So he's just going to do what he needs to do because that's what he desires. It's no secret. So if you vote for President Obama as a gun owner and you own a gun, you should give up your gun because that's what you're doing. You're voting to give up your gun. I think that when you go to vote, they should put a big barrel right next to the voting booth. And if you're voting for Obama, you should have all your guns with you, and you should be putting them in that barrel right there and then, because that's what you're voting for. That's what you're voting for. You're voting to give up your rights to bear arms. All right. I don't usually get this serious. I don't usually get this political. I don't like it. But, we got 3 weeks. I feel very strongly about, the right to bear arms. So thank you very much for joining me here at the Gear Obsession channel. I really appreciate every friend, viewer, subscriber, and you. I hope I didn't lose too many subscribers. But I just wanted to put this out here. I felt very strongly about it. So take care, and I will see you Friday. Bye.